Hey, it's Matt with AppliancePartsPros.com. In this video, we're going to show you how to troubleshoot your GE top-load washer that won't spin. If your washer won't spin, it could be caused by a few different parts, such as the drain pump, the lid strike, the lid switch, the start capacitor, the control board, the shift actuator, the drive motor, the drive belt, or the clutch gear. Before you start checking things on the list, you want to make sure the load isn't unbalanced or the washer isn't overloaded, which could cause problems with the washer spinning. Please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more DIY appliance repair tips. Rest assured, with a bit of guidance, you can handle this repair on your own. Let's get started and get your washer back into working order. With over 2 million products in stock and the know-how to help you do it yourself, we are AppliancePartsPros.com. In this video, we're going to need a large adjustable pliers, the 1/4-inch nut driver, the ratchet with an extension with a 3/8 and 9/16 socket, a multimeter with narrow pin extensions, a multimeter that you can read microfarads with, the spray bottle, and the towel. Also, we're going to use a lanyard. Safety should always come first, so make sure to unplug the washer or turn off the circuit breakers to avoid electrocution. Also, make sure to turn off the hot and cold water supplies. The first thing we're going to check is the drain pump. It pumps the wastewater out of the washer. If your washer won't spin and you notice there's still water in the tub when you open the lid, it could be that the drain pump is clogged or the motor has failed. If the washer detects water still in the tub, it will not go into the spin cycle. If you don't have water in the tub and your washer is draining, you can skip to the next step. First thing we're going to do is go around back. We're going to put a towel down to catch any water that may spill, then remove the fill hoses with the large adjustable pliers. Make sure you label them so you don't mix them up. Then go back around to the front of the washer, open up the lid and remove as much water as you can. Then close the lid and carefully tilt the washer back. The drain pump is over here on the right hand side of the washer. We have to remove the cover, so we're going to use a 3/8 socket with an extension and a ratchet to remove the 3 bolts that hold the cover on. Then reach up and disconnect the drain pump wiring harness. There's a locking tab you have to press and then pull it off. Grab the multimeter with the narrow pin extensions and make sure it's set for continuity. Push a pin into each socket. You should have continuity. Plug the wiring harness back in. You want to make sure it locks and you get a good connection. Next, we're going to remove the drain pump to check for clogs. You want to put a towel down to catch any water that may come out. We're going to use the large adjustable pliers to compress the clamp on the internal drain hose and move it up, and then pull the hose off the pump. Once you have the hose off, we're going to grab the 3/8 socket with an extension and the ratchet and remove the 3 bolts that hold the drain pump on. Once you have them out, you can pull the drain pump off the tub, then check the drain hole in the outer tub, the inside of the pump, and the drain hoses for any clogs. If you had any clogs, you can clean them out, or if the drain pump didn't have continuity, you'll have to change it out. Ours looked okay, so we're going to put it back in. To put it back in, you want to grab a spray bottle with water and get the seal and drain hose wet to make it easier to put them back in. Then just line the drain pump up with the outer tub and push it back into place, and use the 3/8 socket with an extension or ratchet to put the bolts back on that hold it in place. Then we can put the drain hose back on. You just want to line it up with the pump and push it on, and then use the large adjustable pliers to move up the clamp. Make sure it's seated properly so you get a good seal. We're going to leave the cover off for now. Once you're done testing the drain pump, you can carefully put the washer back up on its feet. Next thing we're going to check is the lid strike. It engages with the lid switch to tell the washer when the lid is closed. If your washer won't spin, the lid strike could be missing or damaged. Some are just a simple strike for the lid switch, while others are made to work with the lid lock. In order to check the lid strike, we have to open up the washer lid. The strike is usually mounted to the lid with a couple of screws. You want to make sure it's mounted tight and not lost or damaged. Now we can check the lid switch. It's a safety device that tells the washer if the lid is open or closed. Some models also have a lid lock and a lock switch. If the lid switch has failed, the washer will think the lid is open and it won't spin. We're going to have to plug the washer back in so we can run the diagnostic test. The lid switch has a self-test in the field service mode, so we're going to enter the service mode and do the test. Your tech sheet may be different depending upon your model number. We're going to hold the start button while turning the main control knob 7 clicks either way, then release the start button and turn the knob clockwise until the lights on the display match test 13 on the tech sheet. Then hit the start button again. With the lid closed, the rinse light should blink. Then open the lid and the spin light should blink. If you have the lid open and it doesn't change from rinse to spin, the lid switch is bad and you'll have to change it out. Once you're done with the test, you can unplug the washer. Next, we can check the start capacitor. It helps start the drive motor. If it's starting to get weak or has failed, it may not send the power to the motor and the washer won't spin. In order to test it, we'll have to go around back and use the 1/4" nut driver to remove the access panel. Once you have the screws out, you just kind of lift up on the bottom and slide it to the right to release the locking tabs. Once you have it off, you can set it aside. The start capacitor is over here on the right-hand side. Capacitors can hold a charge, so you'll want to be careful not to touch the terminals until it's discharged. Remove both wire connectors and take the 1/4" nut driver and use the metal end to touch both terminals at the same time to make sure it's discharged. You can do it once or twice just to be sure. To test the start capacitor, you'll need a multimeter that reads microfarads. So set the meter to microfarads. You can see here on the start capacitor that it should have 60 microfarads plus or minus 5%. Touch a test lead to each terminal to read the microfarads. Once you're done testing, reconnect the wiring harness to each terminal. Make sure you get a good connection. Next, we need to test the main control board. It controls all the functions of the washer. If the control board isn't sending power to the shift actuator, the washer won't spin. Plug the washer back in so we can run the diagnosis. We have to make sure that the control board is putting out voltage to the shift actuator. So we're going to enter the service mode and do the test. Your tech sheet may be different depending upon the model number. Turn the knob clockwise until the lights on the display match test 14. Once you have it set up to run the test, we can go around back again to access the control board. Since we already had the access panel off, we just need to tilt the control panel forward. You just have to pull back on it to release the locking tabs and rotate it up and lay it on top of the washer. Extreme care should always be taken to protect against electrical shock, which could potentially result in serious injury. Please do not test live voltage if you are uncomfortable using a multimeter around live voltage. We're going to test for voltage, so make sure your meter is set to volts AC. We're going to test the voltage on connector 512 on the board right here. We're going to test from the dark brown wire to the blue one. Once you have the test ready, we just need to reach up and hit the start button on the control panel. Once the spin test starts and you hear the door lock, the board will send power to the shift actuator. You should get approximately 120 volts. Once you're done with the test, hit the start button to stop the test and then unplug the washer. Now we can check the shift actuator. It shifts the transmission from agitate to spin by engaging the clutch to shift the transmission. If you're getting an error code for the shift actuator switch, it could be that the switch on the actuator has failed or the motor isn't working and the shift actuator could be bad. To test the shift actuator motor, we're going to unplug connector J512 on the board right here. Just press the locking tab and pull it off. Then we're going to test from the dark brown wire to the blue one. Make sure your meter is set on ohms. You should get approximately 5,700 ohms. If the reading is way off or you're not getting a reading at all, the motor has failed. To test the switch, we're also going to unplug J511 on the control board. Set your meter for continuity. Spin is the normal position for the shift actuator, so the switch should have continuity. Test from the tan wire on J512 to the gray wire on J511. It should have continuity. Then plug both wire harnesses back in so they have a good connection. Now we have to test it and agitate. So we're going to plug the machine in and enter the service mode and do the test. We're going to hold the start button while turning the main control knob 7 clicks either way. Then release the start button. Then turn the knob clockwise until the lights on the display match test 15. Once you hear the washer start to agitate, hit the start button to pause the test and then unplug the washer. Then unplug wiring harnesses J512 and 11 again and test from the tan to the gray wires. It should not have continuity while on agitate. If the motor or switch is bad, then the shift actuator is bad and it has to be changed. Reconnect the wiring harnesses so they lock in and you get a good connection. Then we can check the drive motor. The drive motor turns the motor pulley using the belt to turn the gear case pulley. If the drive motor has failed, the washer won't spin. Then we're going to check the motor for ohms to make sure it's good. Make sure your meter is set to ohms. Then unplug the wiring harness from J511 on the board. There are 2 windings on the motor. Each should have 2.8 to 4.2 ohms. We're going to put one test probe in the brown wire and one in the white. Then leave it in the brown wire and switch it over to the yellow wire. You should get 2.8 to 4.2 ohms for both windings. If they are out of range or you don't get a reading at all, then the motor is bad. Go ahead and reconnect the wiring harness back to the control board. Make sure it locks on so you get a good connection. Once the test is done, you want to put the control panel back on. Just rotate it over and line up the tabs and push it forward. Then we can put the access panel back on. You want to line up the tabs and slide it to the left. Then use the 1/4" nut driver to put the screws back in. Now we're going to check the drive belt. It connects to the motor and the transmission pulleys together to drive the tub. If the drive belt is stretched out or has fallen off, the washer won't spin. In order to check the drive belt, we have to tilt the washer back. You can see the belt. We're going to pull it off in order to inspect it. So you just want to grab it and pull down on it. Be careful you don't catch your fingers in the pulley here. Once you have it free, you can pull it off. Once you have the belt off, you want to turn it inside out. Check for cracks or missing chunks that may be causing thumping noises as it goes around. You can also see if it feels dried out. Sometimes if they get old, they dry out. To put the drive belt on, we're just going to put it around the transmission pulley first, and then get it started on the motor pulley and hold it right here. Kind of stretch it around. Don't get your finger caught in there. And you want to push up on the belt right here. It has a tendency not to go up into that upper groove, so you want to make sure it's up there. While we're down there, we're going to look at the clutch gear. It engages with the transmission pulley to allow the tub to spin during the spin cycle. If it's damaged, your washer won't spin. A lot of the time, if the clutch gear is wearing out, you'll see white plastic residue on the cover in the transmission pulley. Then we're going to use a ratchet with the extension and the 9/16" socket to take off the nut that holds the pulley on. Just want to hold it and break it free. Then we're going to pull the pulley down. Sometimes it's on there a little tight, so you may have to rock it back and forth as you pull down. Once you have it off, you can set it aside. Once you have the pulley off, we can inspect the clutch gear. These are the teeth where it engages with the transmission pulley, so you want to make sure those look okay. Also look at the teeth on the inside. Those should be tight and not damaged. Our clutch gear looks okay, so we're going to change out the lid switch that was bad. In order to change out the lid switch, we're going to go around back and use the 1/4" nut driver to take out the 2 screws that hold the access panel on. Once you have them out, you can lift up the access panel and slide it to the right to release the tabs. Then you can set it aside. Then pull back on the console to release the tabs that hold it on. Then lift up on the console, rotate it over and set it on top of the washer. Then use a 1/4" nut driver to remove the 2 screws that holds the top to the cabinet. Now that we have access to the control board, we can unplug the lid switch wiring harness. Just press on the locking tab and unplug it. Follow the wiring harness back to the cabinet top and unclip the holder that holds it on, and use a small flathead screwdriver to push the other 2 clips through. You just have to press on the longer side of the clips and then push them through. Ours is broken on this machine, so we're just going to push it through. Once you have them off, we can put the console back on. Just rotate it back over, line up the tabs, and push it forward to lock it in. Then use the 1/4" nut driver to put in 1 screw to hold it in place. Then we're going to go back around to the front so we can lift the top up. First, we're going to open the lid and use a putty knife to release the 2 locking tabs that hold the top down. They're located about 2 inches or so on each side of the handle opening. Just press in on them with the putty knife to release them while we grab the lip of the top and pull up on it so they don't lock back down. Lift up on the top so we can reach the switch underneath. You can see there are 2 locking tabs that hold the bezel to the switch. Just bend them so they release the switch. Lower the top back down. There's a locking tab that we have to release so the lid switch will come out. Just press on it with the small flathead screwdriver and slide the switch to release it. The new door switch comes with a new lid strike, so we have to take the old one off in order to get it ready for the new one. To remove the lid strike, we're going to use a Phillips screwdriver and remove the screws that hold it on. Then we're going to close the lid and tape it back down so it doesn't fall when we lift the top up. When you lift the top up, you want to be extra careful because this washer doesn't have hinges on it. You can put a towel across the top and lean it against the wall. We're going to use a lanyard to hold ours. We're going to grab the lid switch and pull it out from these two metal holders and off the washer. Here's the old lid switch and strike next to the new one. If you already have one of these, great. If not, you can get it at appliancepartspros.com. To put the new lid switch on, we're going to line it up with the opening on the top and slide it over to lock it in place. Then we're going to use a small flathead screwdriver to bend out the metal clips and run the wiring harness along the side. Press the two locking clips that hold it into the top. Then feed the wiring harness through the hole in the opening and clip in the last holder. Then we're going to lower the top down, so unhook the lanyard and lower it down. Make sure it locks into the tabs. Remove the tape from the top and lift it up so we can put the bezel back on. There's a little locating pin on one side, so make sure it's lined up before you lock it in. Once you have the bezel snapped in, we can put the new lid strike on. We're just going to line it up on the opening and use the Phillips screwdriver to put in the screws to hold it down. Once you have both screws in, you can close the lid and go around back. Take the 1/4" nut driver and remove the screw that's holding the console on and pull back on the console. Rotate it over and set it on top of the machine. Run the wiring harness over to the control board and plug it in. You want to make sure it locks in so you get a good connection. Then use the 1/4" nut driver to put in the screws that hold the tops of the cabinet. Then grab the console and put it back on. Make sure you line up the tabs and push forward on it to lock it in. Grab the access panel and put it back on. You want to line up the locking tabs and slide it to the left and use the 1/4" nut driver to put the screws back in that hold it on. Put the fill hoses back on. Make sure you don't mix them up. Start them by hand so you don't damage the threads, and tighten them down with the large adjustable pliers so you don't have any leaks. Once you have the machine put back together, you can plug it back in, turn the water back on, and take it for a spin. Once you've identified the culprit behind your GE top-load washer spinning issue, be it the lid strike or something else, grab your model number and visit appliancepartspros.com to order the replacement part you need. Most orders arrive within a few days, so you'll be back to the laundry day in no time. Once your part arrives, you can follow along with our installation guides to smoothly complete your repair. Let us know how your repair went by leaving a comment below. Thanks again for choosing appliancepartspros.com, and we'll see you next time.